Are you ready to geek out? Do you smell what the geek is cooking? Man, for the two people who are listening to this right now who bounced off, I apologize. For those who are still with us, I'm really glad that you're here because I've been wanting to do this episode for a very, very, very long time. Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. Tonight, we are going to talk about Daniel Warren Johnson's graphic novel, Do a PowerBomb. And so if you're a fan of wrestling, if you're a fan of comics, and you're a fan of both of them, then this book is for you. And I've been wanting to hang out and talk about this book for a long time. It has theological implications. It has power. It has action. It has drama. I even had like a little tear in my eye when I read this for the first time. I collected it in single issues, and then I had to go out and buy the graphic novel as a whole so I could sit down and read it all the way through once again. And I have some friends. And I said, if I ever talk about this on a podcast or on a YouTube live stream, I said, there's three guys that I want to bring on this because they're fans of wrestling or fans of comics or fan of both. And so I can't do this episode alone. I'm gonna bring them on, and we're gonna rumble. We're gonna have a cage match. We're tag team partners in this discussion of Do a PowerBomb. First up, I'm going to bring up my friend Brandon. Brandon, how are you doing? Brandon is an original Systematic Geekology host, did some other things, and then we bring him back on for things that we know that he geeks out on. He's also the host of My Seminary Life, which is a podcast in the Anazile network. And so you need to hop over there and listen to that if you're interested. And Brandon, I know he's a comic book fan. I know he's a wrestling fan. Brandon, how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I enjoyed your intro. I now know how far your wrestling knowledge goes because you did throw a rock, one of the Rock in there. So I know you know the Rock. Everybody knows Dwayne Johnson. But yeah, it's good to be here. I'm excited to talk about this book. I'm excited to talk about wrestling. I think if there was ever any geekdoms that, you know, those Venn diagrams with the circles, if there was ever one that really intersects, I think it's wrestling and comic books and Dragon Ball Z. They all kind of meet up right in the middle.
What? Yeah. Oh yeah, here we go. You did it. You did it. Brandon, I'm proud of you. I agree. My wrestling knowledge goes back to the 1900s. And I was a fan of wrestling in the 1980s and the 90s. That's going to be my references. Another guy who's up to date. He's kind of like the Gen Z of wrestling. No, I think he's a millennial. I don't know. I don't like labels. Neither does he. My friend Josh, the host of Rethinking Faith, we duped him into talking about a comic book on another podcast. And I know he's a wrestling fan. I said, guess what? I'm going to bring you on when we're talking about a graphic novel about wrestling and comics. I was on his podcast not that long ago to talk about the both and of life and faith and theology. So yeah, you can do faith and science. Yeah, you can do geek stuff and be a person of faith. And we talked about that. And so I said, man, you got to come on Systematic Geekology and hang with us. Josh, how are you doing? Are you hyped? What's your intro music right now as you wait backstage ready to run into the ring?
Well, so I guess since I'm wearing a Sami Zayn shirt, I'll go with Worlds Apart, which is a really good song.
Okay.
Yeah, nailed it. So a little bit of sky action up in here. Yeah, I'm excited. I have loved wrestling for a hot second, and it's not something I normally talk about on Rethinking Faith. And so I'm excited for the opportunity to bring together two things that I love, professional wrestling and theology, philosophy, faith, whatever labels you're comfortable with.
I love that. Okay. Yeah. A guy who's beyond labels. We got to bring him on board. The anchor to the tag team. There he is. Ryan Does. Oh man, there he goes. Ryan is the host of Across the Bifrost. He is the Many Paths network umbrella that holds Superpower Happy Hour that we workshopped in my car on the way back from the beach at Theology Beer Camp.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And also one of my favorite podcasts that's out there today is called What's Your Issue, where he talks about talks with creators in the comic book business, in the game, and gets them to talk about their favorite comic and how the sausage is made with the comic.
Will, that's the easiest sales pitch to a comic book creator. I'll just message them up, be like, hey, you might want to show us how the sausage gets made. And they're like,
like, I'm a vegan. They're like, I'm a vegan, Ryan. I am highly offended. I'm not coming. Ryan, I am really excited. We are both bonded over how much we love Daniel Warren Johnson and his work.
yes.
And I know they're a huge wrestling fan. So I did not allow myself to talk about this with anybody else but you. And so I'm glad that you're here. And I know that you're now a guest on my podcast and me not on yours. So you can do puns. You can give me a hard time. You can make jokes that I'm going to roll my eyes out, because that's usually what I do on yours. So
we've really come full circle, William.
We've come full circle. And folks, he calls me William a lot. In case you want to know.
I do. I don't even know where that started.
I know. It's like,
all
right,
why that started.
I'm like, all right, K-Rose, am I in
That
trouble?
felt weird.
Am I in trouble, K-Rose? Well, we're glad that you are all here. So that's who we are. I'm going to go around the horn here, and I'm very kind of curious about your relationship with wrestling and with comics, or both. And again, we don't want this to be like super long. You may have a lifelong relationship with wrestling. We don't want to hear your deep cut of the tag team partner of 2013 who won the middleweight championship at I don't know, wrestle bomb house. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of something.
Quick, we have to use that one. We're going to do our own SG wrestling show, Wrestle Bomb, whatever the heck he just said. That's going to be the name of the event.
So let's go with Josh.
Mania, number 1.
I tried to avoid WrestleMania because that's the only one I know, and most people know. But whatever. Josh, what's your relationship to wrestling and to comics? I'm especially I'm curious about your relationship to comic books.
Yeah, so my relationship with comic books is not a lot. I didn't read too many comic books growing up and stuff. I mean, I do remember some things that are close, but definitely are not comic books. Like, when I was in elementary school, I did the Captain Underpants thing, which has comic book type sides.
Pictures.
It does have pictures. I remember I had the comic book Bible when I was a kid, where it's like a Bible comic book. So there was that. That was awkward though, because Jesus is white in it, and I don't.
Bummer.
Yeah, so not too much. Not too much. It's comic books are I've seen it on Marvel movies or something. Right. But I'm a Batman fan, so that's my favorite superhero is Batman. So I guess I should look at some Batman comics. But wrestling.
I have a suggestion.
You have some good ones.
I got some good ones. There's a good theology one too, like Theology and Jury and Justice, Cold Days by Tom King and Lee Weeks. So freaking good.
Shocker that you recommended a Tom King book.
I was about to say the same thing. I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know who that is.
You also discussed a comic though on another podcast.
I did 2 of them. Yeah. I did Iron Man and Aquaman on the Superpower Happy Hour with Ryan.
You did,
which I felt like I didn't bring much to that conversation. Maybe colored commentary.
Hush. You were amazing.
Just goofy, silly stuff. I basically made fun of things, which made me feel kind of bad.
That's
but I liked it.
Our happy hour's about.
It was fun.
Bingo.
To do that, and then wrestling though, I've had a deeper relationship, a deeper personal relationship with wrestling. Ever since I was young, and middle school, definitely elementary school, watched it on TV, played the video games. I had action figures. I would steal food coloring out of my parents' kitchen cabinet to use his blood on my action figures. And so I was in deep. And you said not to be long, but I'll end with this. You never forget, as in 5th or 6th grade, my dad took me to see Friday Night SmackDown. And it was the first time I saw The Undertaker appear live. When the stadium went pitch black, where I couldn't see my hand in front of my face, and that gong resounds, and you can feel it in your chest, and the fire. You can feel the fire as if it's like in your face. You will never, ever, ever forget that moment. So, I was hooked for life.
Josh,
Nice.
And I still watch
Teddy
it today.
Long
I still
there?
watch it today. Teddy Long was there.
Oh man, I'm jealous.
We're gonna go
Let me
one-on-one
highlight you,
with the
player.
Undertaker.
I
Yeah.
knew this would happen. I knew this would happen. I knew they start name drop. I knew it. That's okay. That's
You
why we're
literally
here.
asked us to talk about our favorite thing.
All right, Ryan. I see you're about to jump out of your seat.
I was like, I
what-
dare you to ask me about comics and wrestling. Will.
What's your relationship to wrestling and comics, and together or apart, or what came first, comics or wrestling?
Wrestling came first.
Okay.
Because I lived in the middle of nowhere in Iowa, so we didn't have comic book stores. But my brother had a DVD set of WrestleMania 19 that I watched on repeat. I have seen Brock Lesnar miss that shooting star press about 1,000 times. And I was like, I fell in love with Kurt Angle, with Brock Lesnar, The Undertaker. But my the traditional Undertaker music is the horn.
Yeah.
But I on that show, I fell in love with two wrestlers, Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels. And that was like post back injury, met Jesus Shawn Michaels. So I didn't even know about Bad Boy Shawn Michaels. I thought he was always a great guy. I didn't even know what the Suck It chant was, until a few years after that. But I remember, falling in love with wrestling because of the stories, the theatrics of it. A lot of what we're going to talk about and do a PowerBomb, the emotions of it, the passion of it, the energy. But I do remember that was like old wrestling at that point. It was a few years before the live stuff. Okay, we'll talk about Ric Flair later, Will, I promise. Woo! But I remember my mom had kind of like, she didn't really want me to watch pro wrestling, but my older brother loved pro wrestling. So I was like, well, I'm going to like sneak, I hope she can't hear this right now. But I'm going to, she'd said like, I'd really prefer you not watch that. But I snuck out, to watch Monday Night Raw so many different times. And I remember the first time I watched Monday Night Raw, I saw Jeff Hardy hit a swanton bomb off the Jumbotron. And I was like, yeah, this is probably going to stick for life. So wrestling has, I've dipped in and out of it. It's crazy how little wrestling you watch when you get a girlfriend. But now I love wrestling. I talk to Josh almost daily about wrestling. Wrestling, awesome. Comics came a little bit later. When I moved off to college, there was a comic book store down the street. So I started picking up issues of Thor. Thor is one of my great comic book love. People have checked out my shows before that kind of know that. But hey, my dad just did a run-in and he flipped me the bird like Stone Cold. So with comics, I started reading Thor comics because it combined two of my other loves, Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. And I was like, man, this guy's kind of my guy. Because he's fantasy, space, all that. So I picked up Thor comics and Aquaman and Wonder Woman and all that stuff. So I've been reading comics for the last, 10 plus years and haven't looked back, man.
There you go. Yeah, that's awesome. And you do a lot of work on your own podcast, going through comics and issues, and you're doing first appearances now, going back to comics in the 1940s to ask, are they good or not? And it's been a lot of fun. And we talk comics like that's so good. Great testimony. All right, Brandon, relationship. I know you personally, so I know you like comics. I know you like wrestling. Which came first? And what's your relationship to both these entities of media that express story?
So before I answer that, how a few months ago there was that trend of like, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? Ryan, Jeff Hardy doing that swanton, I think about it every day of my life. It lives rent-free every day.
You know what, Brandon? Screw the Roman Empire. I've never thought about the Roman Empire. I think about a different Roman Empire when I think about the Roman Empire. I think about the bloodline, baby.
It's been a good story. So for me, when it comes to wrestling and comics and also my faith, I don't know which came first. They have always just kind of been there for me. I have very faint memories of of the late 90s watching WCW Nitro with my dad. I was you guys, or I think Ryan talked about like not knowing douchebag Shawn Michaels. I don't know good guy Hulk Hogan. I don't know why Hulk Hogan was a bad guy. Like obviously I've gone back and seen
I get that
Orange and
reference.
Yellow.
I get that reference. I get that
Okay,
reference.
good.
I don't know good guy.
I don't know good guy. I know NWO Hulk Hogan. I guess this does ask the bigger question of, was there ever a good guy Hulk Hogan? But that's a different podcast.
Brandon, we don't have time to unpack all that.
We don't have time.
Thank you, John Mulaney. So, but along with that, like I had really early on in my life comic books, like even before I could read. My dad used to go to Comic Cons and bring me back like the freebie stuff, you know. I have the first appearance of Batman Beyond. I've had it since like it came out, and it's, you know, as a small child, like it's not in great condition now, but it's like that's a pretty valuable book, and I got it for free like when I was 5 or something. And right around that same time is also when like I came to faith in Jesus. So this has all just been like a swirling pool for me the whole time. Got out of wrestling a little bit there in the early 2000s, same kind of thing. My mom was like, yeah, I don't want you watching Undertaker trying to marry Stephanie McMahon and then Triple H. And yeah, she wasn't cool with all this stuff. But got back into it right around 2008 and was a total TNA kid. So I'm very excited right now because TNA is back. My first wrestling show was a TNA house show. Main event was RVD, Jeff Hardy, and AJ Styles. All three of them against each other. Ooh, I just got Ryan to pop.
I know. Ryan just jumped out of his chair. For the
that popped the boys, Brandon.
Oh, good. And just like Josh, favorite superhero is Batman, and I can also give you some Batman recommendations as well. So
love it. Yeah. So, you know, people who are friends of mine and listen to the show know that I'm a big comic book nerd and love comics. They've been a part of my literacy ever since I was really little. There was a little window where I did like wrestling from the 80s and 90s. Yeah. Ric Flair, the Four Horsemen. I tell you.
Woo! Somebody has to do it.
Somebody has to do it. My uncle lived in the same neighborhood as Ric Flair in Charlotte there for a while, and we would drive by to see if we could see Ric Flair checking his mail or whatever. But so yeah, and I definitely
at 8 o'clock in the morning
in the Speedo.
Oh yeah, he definitely and the glasses and everything, you know, all that things. But yeah, the figure 4 that is in great. I used to put my little brother into the figure 4, and then I would let him let me put in the figure 4, and then I'd flip it on him and reverse it.
Oh,
there we go.
Boom. Yeah, I would.
Did you ever do the bridge? But are you Charlotte Flair? That's the question.
Is where it's at, brother.
Probably Charlotte. Charlotte Flair, born in Charlotte. I get it now. I get it.
You get it.
Yeah. So yeah,
it's gonna be like walking Will across the street tonight, guys.
These two worlds come together in Daniel Warren Johnson's Do a Powerbomb. It's also no secret that I'm a huge fan of Daniel Warren Johnson. For those of you who aren't familiar with comics as much, usually you have a whole team of people that are a part of the creative team of a comic. Like you have the artists, you have the inkers, you have the colors, you have the letterers, you have an editor, you have all these things. A lot of Daniel Warren Johnson's work is he's doing all of that, except maybe the colors. I think Mike Spicer helps him do makes him do or helps him do the colors in his book, but the lettering, the art, the script, creator owned stuff. He's worked for Marvel and DC. Just to list a couple of things he's worked on. Extremity is kind of where he broke into the scene with a book called Extremity, and then Murder Falcon, where if you like this book and wrestling and comics come together, he did the same thing with heavy metal. And it is an incredible book. Again, another moving big book. When you get to the end, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm moved by this crazy heavy metal book. He did Wonder Woman, Dead Earth, and then of course Do a Powerbomb. And now he's currently working on Transformers over with Robert Kirkman and Skybound, and merging the Energon universe with G.I. Joe and Transformers. And it is not the Saturday morning cartoon. It is very similar art to what we read in Do a Powerbomb, and people die in it. So there you go. Spoiler. I was fortunate to go this past summer to HeroCon in Charlotte and stand in line and wait for an autograph and to tell him how much I enjoyed his work. And by the time I got to the front of the line, he had to go do a panel. But my friend in front of me, Lee, who's also has hopes of publishing his own comics at some point in the future, and an artist. He was there, and before he left, before Daniel, I said, "Hey, it's Lee," and I wasn't lying. I was like, "It's Lee's birthday. Can you sign his book?" And he was like, "Sure." And so I handed Lee my book as well. So we signed both books. Issue 7 of Do a Powerbomb. So we signed 2 books, got it back. And there you go. He was nice enough for that. Super friendly guy. I follow him on Instagram. I can't gush enough about this dude's work and what he brings to the comic book game. As we talk about Do a Powerbomb, there will be spoilers. We're going to talk about this book in the end, or that kind of thing. If you don't want to hear, I'm going to read it for yourself. Pull on your heartstrings. Then go read it and then come back to this episode. But yeah, so there will be spoilers. So that's okay. Ryan, anything I'm forgetting about Daniel Warren Johnson? Because I know we're super fans. And
here's the thing, like what I love about Daniel Warren Johnson is I've never been fortunate enough, like Will, to meet the man in person. He just seems like a comic book fan's comic creator.
Yeah.
Like he writes and draws things that people legitimately love. And what's so great about the way he creates stories is there's so much action. There's so much velocity to his art. There's so much kinetic energy, but he does this 50-50 where it's a complete thrill ride that also pulls on your heartstrings. A lot of comic creators I've found they thrive in one world. It's like, oh, this is a really great action comic, and it's a lot of really fantastic fights and big battles, or it's a really like small kind of intimate story. DWJ does both and executes them to perfection, and I get it why he's in such high demand. Yep. Like his comics are pieces of artwork and storytelling gold that decades from now people will be like, oh my gosh, how have you never read a Daniel Warren Johnson comic? Things like that. I also love that in that story, Will, you are a crafty preacher man where you're like, hey, my buddy needs his comic signed. And you're just like, also, Will's going to get his signed too.
Issue 7 of Do a Powerbomb, right there on the cover. DWJ
is
on the cover.
Will's secret superpower is his charm, everybody. His charm.
What's even your friend's birthday?
That could be my finishing move called the charm. And I just like charm you up, and then I don't know. I was just thinking of how I'm gonna knock somebody out in wrestling with the charm.
With the charm.
And I would be a miss as well to talk about his work on Beta Ray Bill. I didn't even mention that he worked for Marvel, and one of my favorite Thor / characters can hold his own. It is fantastic. That's another book that is absolutely
if you like giant guns and giant swords in space, go read his Beta Ray Bill comic.
Shut up and take my money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I tell you, you will not.
I've heard that's a really good series. I haven't read it yet, but I've heard that's
it's
really
5
good.
issues that grab you by the whatever, and they just don't let go.
By the whatever.
Wow.
So I'm gonna do things a little different. Before we get into the book itself, I do want to go around the horn and share with me, like, you just you put the book down, you finished it. What is your first impression? A 1 or 2 sentence. This is my hot take on this book. And how would you articulate your thoughts on it? Brandon, I'm gonna go with you first.
Well, I just put it down for the very first time this afternoon. That was my first read. And dang, I'm already past 2 sentences. I would say this.
You blew it.
I blew it. What assignment? I
Get this jabroni out of here.
I'm pretty sure this is my first DWJ book, and kudos to him. Good writing, good art. There are some guys who are great at the writing, shouldn't do the art, and then there are some guys who can do the art, maybe not the writing, and then somewhere in the middle is Rob Liefeld.
Oh!
Oh, where's the air horn? I can't find it. Oh man. There it is. There it is.
And very
Cheap
quick,
pop, Brandon. Cheap pop.
Or maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do this. There you go. All right. Good, good, good. Yeah. I'll give you one more sentence, Brandon. Finish your thought. Yeah, yeah.
So here's my hot take about the book. It's New Japan Pro Wrestling meets Lucha Underground. And I liked it.
Yeah. Yeah. Liked it. All right. Good, good, good. Josh, I think Ryan, he's going to have to wait. Let him simmer down just a little bit. Josh, I made you read this. Well, I lured you. I encourage you to read this graphic novel. You just put it down. You finished it. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? What did Will make me do? Or what do you think about this story?
Yeah, it's an existential tale of love and loss. And I really liked it. It captures, I think what it does, one thing it does super well is it captures the heart and the essence of professional wrestling. It has the like over the top, larger than life, like in your face, exciting, kind of vibe to it on every page. And as someone who has ADHD, it it kept me interested the entire time.
Nice.
Because of all the wonderful, pretty pictures and the excitement. So I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I'll short summary is an existential tale of love and loss that definitely tugs on them heartstrings.
Yeah, I love that. That's good. Yeah, I do think I do like reading books and novels and fiction and nonfiction and theology books and philosophy books. But man, my go-to is comics, probably because I have ADHD, never been diagnosed. But yeah, the pictures and the words and the word bubbles and the movement from one page to the other, fantastic. And I will see Eric chimed in as he's streaming in and watching. Eric, friend who's also been on Superpower Happy Hour. He said his mini Beta Ray Bill book was the book of the year for him. And yeah, I'm glad I didn't forget about that. I did not see your comment first, Eric. I remembered it. Proud of myself. But yeah, thanks for chiming in. That's good. And yeah, there you go. All right. God, he is cool. He is cool. I love that. So all right, Ryan, you had to sum this up in a couple of sentences. What are you going to say?
I got this, I think. So I would say this is a beautifully brutal, no holds barred, between the ropes masterpiece about death, hope, and headlocks.
Oh man, look at that. Someone's
that was scripted. That was pre-written.
No, that was a promo in the ring off the dome, brother.
That's right.
As John Cena once said, I don't need my promo on my wrist, Josh.
Hey, these are tattoos, not promos. Come on.
Oh, okay.
Good. Well said, guys. Yeah, I being a fan of Daniel Warren Johnson, knowing this book was coming out, and every, for those who don't know, every Wednesday is New Comic Book Day. You can go to the comic book store and pick up your fresh comics in your pull list. But comics usually come out once a month or bi-monthly, every couple of weeks, sometimes longer if the person's slow with their art and writing. But this came out every month and single issues. I had to wait. Not just sit and read it in one sitting, but wait for each issue. And man, I loved it. Every issue came out, I couldn't wait for the next one. It was at the top of my stack every single time. So for me, yeah, it is an action-packed, brutal, bloody drama tale of love and loss and grief, and asking the big questions of, is it worth it to love? Because it's only going to hurt you, or wow. Love is a risky thing because we're all mortal, and we're most likely, all of us are going to lose someone we love to death or something else at some point in our lives. And so how do we wrestle with that grief? And spoiler also, there's a big character. There's a big divine character that shows up in this book at the end. And if you go back and you read,
Thor.
it's
Sorry,
not
Ryan.
Thor. It's not Beta Ray Bill. It's not Odin. You're right. It's
It's Brock Lesnar.
But go
The
back
Beast
and read.
Incarnate.
As you
Ryan.
finish this book, go back and read Genesis chapter 32 of Jacob wrestling with the angel. And the whole story about Jacob is wrestling with his family and his purpose. And as he wrestles with the divine, he leaves transformed and with a limp. And his name is changed to something different. So transformation happens. And in fact, Israel's name means wrestles with God. So if people think that questions aren't important, or that, wow, I'm wrestling with my faith, I'm wrestling with God, I'm wrestling with love, guess what? It's biblical. To wrestle with those things is super, super important, because you will come out a changed person at the end of things. So there's my little sermon for the day. I got the graphic novel, and I wanted to read this in closing paragraph that Daniel Warren Johnson about wrestling, about comics. I think it sums up all this. So hang in there with me, folks. All right. Daniel says, I could go on for a long time on why I love pro wrestling. The combination of real life sports with curated moments, the drama of seeing a person put their life on the line for a story. But honestly, if someone hasn't experienced wrestling intentionally, it's tough to explain why it's so great. Which brings me to comics. I believe that comics are inherently an inviting art form. From memes to newspaper strips, we connect with images and words together immediately. It makes, in my opinion, the perfect platform to introduce someone to new ideas and worlds. It's one of the many reasons why I love comics so much. It's so easy to share my passion with other people, and sharing things that I love brings me so much joy. I did it with Murder Falcon with Falcon with heavy metal, and I'm doing it here too with pro wrestling. The goal is, and always has been, to invite people in, no matter where they're at. So if you are into pro wrestling, welcome, old friends. And if you aren't into it, damn, I'm glad that you made it this far. Daniel Warren Johnson.
And if you're not into it, then we've got 2 words for you.
Yeah. Where's the air horn, Josh?
Bear, 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 bear.
There you go. All right. So yeah, that's the kind of that's a 30-minute setup to this book. But we had to share a little bit about our relationship with this medium, these two mediums of storytelling and drama, and scripted or unscripted or improv. All those things are part of this. And so this book was 7 chapters, or 7 issues, which is a little unconventional. Usually a graphic novel around 6 or maybe 12, but he did it in 7. Man, that's a biblical number 2. Maybe he's throwing something out there on the 7th day.
Completion.
There you go. I did hear Daniel Warren Johnson on a podcast once talk about his creative process and his notebooks and sketchbooks and all those things. And he said he was in church one day and he scripted an idea on the church bulletin on the back. I don't know if this was it or not, but I do.
It became Murder Falcon.
Church at one point. I don't know if he's a church goer. It doesn't matter. No judging. It doesn't matter to me how much. It doesn't change what I think of Daniel Warren Johnson, but the fact that he scribbled an idea on the back of a church bulletin, I'm sure people have done that in my church services, or in when they're listening to my sermon, not taking notes, but just writing an idea they have for later on down the road in the week, or their grocery list. I don't know. But let's go by chapter and just kind of highlight what's going on with the story, and to perhaps a panel or a piece of art that you're like, man, that nailed it. That spoke to me. What's going on? Ryan, do you mind summarizing like the opening issue? You do this well on your podcast. What's happening there in the first issue?
Okay. Well, thank you, Will.
Yeah.
So we start off the story with Yuya Steelrose, who is the champion of the wrestling promotion at this point in the story, and her daughter and husband are at a wrestling match, her championship match, where she is facing off against the vile villain Cobra Sun, who is a masked wrestler. And it is important that he has a mask. It's very important to the story that he wears a mask.
Yes.
And throughout the course of this match, they set up a spot or a move where Cobra Sun slips on the ropes, and Yuya is effectively mortally wounded. She later dies in the hospital. because of this move going badly, which is something that happens in wrestling. There might be scripted moments, but the action is real. Men and women have, been seriously injured, and some have even died in the ring before. So that's a real thing. Yeah. But as a result of this, we see a jump forward. I believe it's 10 years where Yuya's daughter, Lona, is training to become a wrestler. She has an estranged relationship with her father because of how her mom died, and they don't talk to each other. No one will train her to become a wrestler. Nobody wants anything to do with her. Even her uncle doesn't want anything to do with her, and he has a wrestling promotion that he's running at that point. So she's wrestling here and there, but she's not really making the most out of her talent. In walks the supernatural aspect of this comic, where a necromancer, hang with me, everybody, a necromancer comes from another dimension, and he says, hey, by the way, if you join my Death Life tournament for wrestling, I can help you get your mom back. And we're kind of left with that, like, she has to make a decision. She has to, think through how is she going to answer this call to a very bizarre otherworldly thing. So that's kind of where we go in the first chapter of the saga.
Very nice. And this first issue just pulls on so much of how quickly the story pulls you into care for these characters, because you see the love between the family and for the uncle and they're like, yeah, it's, it looks real and it looks painful. The stuff they're doing, you're like on each panel, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, how can this not be real? Of course they're feeling it. And then an accident happens. And so this daughter, Lona, right? What's the name? Lona, I can't believe I forget. Lona is like, yeah, would do anything to get her mom back. And this kind of devil in the shadows, deal with the devil, is like, hey, I got an idea. And the first panel in the entire book is some mysterious guy clicking on a remote control to a television of what getting ready to watch this match is getting ready to happen, with like skulls and old books and candles. And you're like, yeah, that doesn't look it's there to show you that there's somebody watching that doesn't look all that wholesome. And so yeah, you have these big splash pages of action, but that's the deal that's going on. Brandon, is there a particular part of this first chapter or a panel that stands out for you?
Well, it is the introduction of the necromancer, Necroton or something like that. He has a very simple name.
Willard. My last, Willard necromancer.
Yeah, it was that part. So I mentioned earlier, this is like New Japan meets Lucha Underground. The Daniel Warren Johnson's like love for New Japan is pretty evident in this throughout all of this book. But Lucha Underground was this like show that was on like 2010s that was a little bit less sports entertainment and more conventional television show that also had wrestling in it. That might be the best way to go with it. And so with that, there was like mobsters and a little bit of magic and superpowers and dragons and like a whole bunch of things. So it was with this part, it was when this character shows up, that's where I felt like it made this pivot to, okay, not how wrestling usually goes, but I've seen this before. It's also a comic book, so it works. You can almost put anything in a comic book and it works. So yeah, I would say that. So that's where I come at this with this whole, like, it's kind of a fan fiction point here of here's where we get out of like the sports entertainment aspect and into the kind of like a different approach to wrestling. Also loved the panel where Lona asks if they're going to win the tournament, and he's like, well, how would I know? And come to find out here, and then in apparently every other planet in existence, we're the only ones where wrestling is fake. And
Right.
Yeah,
apparently it's very real
part.
Everywhere else.
Everywhere else.
Everywhere else in the multiverse, there is everywhere is real except for us. It says something about our planet. Josh, what do you have here? What jumped out to you this first chapter? You talked about it really kind of pulling you in and holding your attention. What jumped out for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, early on death always has a way of sucking one into a
Yeah.
storyline.
Yeah.
So it kind of pulls on your heartstrings right away and kind of it gets you on Lona's side very quickly.
Yeah.
So Lona is set up as a baby face rather immediately, And so just, kind of echo what everyone else has said, but one of the panels that I really love, and this couldn't have been intentional because timelines don't line up, but the very last page of this first section, the necromancer guy is holding a championship belt.
Yeah.
And to me, it's very reminiscent of a title belt that the WWE had when there was a character named Bray Wyatt. And he had a version of himself that was called The Fiend. Wrestling fans will know that Bray Wyatt passed away rather suddenly and unexpectedly at a very young age recently, within the last year, maybe even within the last 6 months.
It's 6 months.
Yeah, so which was really crazy. It was a weird experience for me because normally I scoff at people who, when like a celebrity dies and they post on Facebook how sad they are, like, come on, you didn't know that person. But the death of Bray Wyatt did something to me emotionally. It touched me in a very, I don't know, strong and profound kind of way. And so that panel, probably this is just my own projections, right? But that panel, in my mind, pays a nice tribute to that. And so,
nice.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about death, and there's bringing some real life.
Yeah, that's important. I'm glad you shared that because that is like something about comics. What we're drawn to in the art, or there's a book or a movie that has the big beats that are everyone's supposed to notice and hopefully move the entire crowd. But there are small moments and small parts that whether it's in a comic or a movie or in a song that can often draw you in or have something new. So that's not something I have a connection to. So you sharing that is pretty cool. Really, really great. Yeah. So the first issue, just really after that first issue, was like, oh, yep, I'm in 100%. And so then here comes issue 2, and you get a little bit more of the background of the evil manager who's pulling the strings behind the scenes to make these matches happen. So whether it's Don King or or whoever it is that's pulling the strings to make this stuff happen, you get a little bit more background, this guy Willard, and it's almost like a Lord of the Rings kind of like big battle, or perhaps the devil, or perhaps a war between the heavens and the multiverse, and he keeps losing. He makes no bones about it. He loves power, he loves fame, he loves all those things, and so that's what he's going after. But while he was exiled, he was forced to watch kind of on his own little island. He discovered television and he discovered wrestling, very similar to what Daniel Warren Johnson share with us in the opening letter about him doing kind of baby duty of rocking the baby to sleep, turning on the television. I myself also have a vivid memory of rocking Hannah when she was a couple months old at 3 a.m. and turning on the TV and catching some old anime on Cartoon Network. I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. So those things happen and draw you in. So yeah, Josh, this particular chapter and issue, what unfolds here? What's going on?
Yeah, so I'm I'm like looking back over it. Yeah, he's basically describing to Lona how he runs things, how he loves power, and I mean, I love this panel. Come on, because I freaking love wrestling, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, in your face.
Right, it's great. And essentially it kind of carries on. There's like kind of a really cruel scene where the necromancer kind of teases Lona by, I guess, like projecting some like hologram isn't quite the right word, but like some kind of representation of Lona's mom.
Yeah.
That when she goes to hug, it just evaporates and disappears. Which
seems evil.
There's one of those heartstring moments. Yeah, kind of using her emotions against her to kind of draw her into his, plan and plot. And then it continues to carry on. And Lona ends up at a wrestling match where we see Cobra's son going up against, I forget his name. Let's see. Someone the Destroyer, big ugly looking friend.
It's Kaneda the Destroyer.
Kaneda the Destroyer. And this match has all of my favorite things in it. It's a no disqualification hardcore match. We got barbed wire, we got steel chairs, we got hurricanranas. You know, there's a fork for some reason. It gets stabbed.
Stab him, he's done.
Tubes.
Stab him, he's done. Stab him, he's
there's
lighting tubes.
The light tubes.
I love light tube spots.
Why?
You know,
It's
dude,
the excitement of the pop. It literally
Right, it-
dust
it-
and it's
you guys are
The dust,
deathmatch
glass.
garbage, is what you
Yes,
are.
I
That's
am.
what it is.
I am.
Deathmatch, very
the fork.
deathmatch.
That's homicide. I knew exactly what
You-
that reference was.
You take your
And that-
CZW garbage and get it off this decent
CZW.
platform. Oh.
And that chest slap though, that panel right there, like
Yeah,
that
it's
captures professional wrestling. I mean, when you watch that happen and see the way handprints are imprinted in people's
That-
chest, and you know your skin folds around someone's hand as you get whacked, like it's
That
on now.
slap looks like it was delivered by the Ring General.
Guter. Yes, absolutely. And then I mean the match ends and ultimately ends up with the panel. Will makes his first appearance in the comic book
I do.
on the last page.
I am Cobra Son. I am Cobra
Yeah.
Son.
That's gotta be Will. That's
For those
gotta be
listening,
Will.
Cobra Son is follically challenged, and so that's why they made a reference.
Follically.
Follically challenged. But that's kind of the reveal at the end. Is that I when I was reading this, I didn't necessarily see that coming. I don't know if you guys did. Any of you guys see that coming? That
No.
Jacob is going to be her dad, and that's why he's so guilt ridden. And so she's trying to get Cobra Son to come be a part of this tournament because that's what's gonna. She needs this and wants to go, and he's like. No, he's guilt ridden too. And in this match, it's almost like you then realize that he's punishing himself for what happened and taking this torture because he basically killed his wife by accident. But of course, he's back in the ring and getting pelted with like barbed wire bats and those kinds of things because he wants to feel the punishment because of the guilt and grief that he's carrying. My favorite panel in this is a small little one. It's a three paneled there at the bottom where she goes. She goes, but I'm going to win, right? Because pro wrestling is scripted. It's the outcome is predetermined. And then there's a silent panel where he's just staring at her. And all of a sudden he's busting out laughing. Good one, Lona Steel Rose. Talented and funny. I love it. Enough joking. One more thing to show you. So he's like, no, it's not scripted. It's not real. And that's the age-old thing. It's like, yeah, it looks real. There's the arguments among wrestling fans. Is it real? Is it not real? Of course it's real. I remember having that argument when I was a kid. Yeah, it's real. And they're like, no, it's scripted. But the drama of all, whether it's scripted or not, you still don't know what's going to unfold. Most people don't, and so yeah, I just love that panel because it captures kind of where pro wrestling is. But then in this world, it is real. The stakes are high. There's a sense of urgency, but yeah, this is going to be a risky endeavor that's going to happen. Ryan, anything in this second issue that jumps out of you?
I mean, Josh already mentioned it, but that last page reveal is so good. And it immediately adds so much depth to a story that is 2 issues long at this point.
Yeah.
Because what you do at that moment is you realize the implications of Jacob being Cobra Son and juxtaposing that with his in-ring persona and his out-of-the-ring role as father and husband of a deceased wrestler. And obviously we flesh out his grief and his guilt later on in the story. But that last page reveal is so good. My favorite panel, like I chastised my fellow wrestling fans, about deathmatch wrestling and hardcore stuff. I have to eat some of that, back and take it back a little bit because the moment when Kaneda the Destroyer, which by the way, fantastic reference to a great move, the Canadian Destroyer. Listeners, if you don't know what a Canadian Destroyer is, just actually here, do this. Go to YouTube, a different YouTube. If you're watching us
Open
live,
a new tab.
please open a new tab and look up Christopher Daniels Canadian Destroyer.
Oh, got to go with Christopher Daniels. Okay.
I will go with Christopher Daniels on that one. But there's tons of people that pull off the move greatly. But I love the panel where Cobra's son has the fork jammed in his pectoral muscle, and Kaneda hits him with the lighting tube from behind. I'm just like, it's quintessential Daniel Warren Johnson. The action moves. It doesn't literally move, but as you're looking at it, you're just like, there is so much force. It's great.
Yeah. Well said. That's like, I knew I brought the right people on for this discussion. Brandon, what jumps out for you the second chapter in the story?
I'll be quick so we can keep going. So I also love the panel of the chest slap, like the detail. It's wonderful detail for that. Bouncing all off of the big reveal that Cobra's son is her father. Along with that, what we're going to see as the story continues to unfold is that this is where the comic book writing blends so well with the pro wrestling storytelling, because every issue has like a swerve moment. Just about every issue has some type of this reveal that you didn't necessarily see coming. They worked you. One of these, I think one of these is a bit of a Vince Russo swerve, but I'll get to that when we get to it. And also I think we also get this is like the first taste in this issue of some of the like religious philosophical things that are going to be happening, because basically he's performing penance at this point. Presumably for 10 years worth of guilt, carrying this, doing what is a match that you're just going to be a bloody mess at the end of. And if he's doing this consistently by this point, like, this is the life that he has lived. That's like this constantly trying to make up for this mistake. In-ring mistakes happen, and sadly those can be very costly. But yeah, so this is like our first taste as well in this chapter of like some of the religious implications going on.
Nice. Ryan,
just one more thing. Something Brandon said there really reminded me of this. If you're a listener out there that has not seen the movie The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke, you should definitely go watch that, because that's like Cobra's son is giving off this, Randy the Ram, vibe. So like The Wrestler is a great movie to kind of further this theme of like feeling the guilt of your past, mistakes. So yeah, that's just a off the cuff recommendation.
Yeah, we're all about recommendations of systematic ecology. That is for sure. So we hop into chapter 3, and there they are at the tournament, and they're kind of signing up Karate Kid style, and they're starting to look around. I love making 1900s pop culture references. That's what I bring to the table. Yes. But I do this aspect of this particular. It started to dawn on me like the kind of the reflection on masks and the masks we wear. Wrestling is about masks and the reveal. Who is the person under the mask? Who are they or not? The masks we wear in society. Who do we want people to see us who we are or not? And even in scripture, we see this, like, God is veiled, that you can't see God face to face. There's something about the separation that you can't look upon God's face. And even God is masked when you get to the end. But this understanding of mask and what is revealed or unveiled for us is pretty important, especially with this apocalyptic multiverse that this Willard, the necromancer, has put together. I think is pretty important. And so right up front, you see this conversation between Jacob and Uncle Blood, and that they're all in kind of this together, this kind of family business of wrestling and the stakes that are there. And they argue back and forth, these real family moments. You shouldn't have told her. You shouldn't have told her that I told you not to let. This time she doesn't know that Cobra's son is her dad, but they're talking behind her back, kind of scripting out what they think is best for her. And then you go and you start meeting the other tag team partners that are in this this thing, and yeah, you not only have like human and humanoids, but you have big orangutans. Like Orangabang is the name of the tag team that they have to fight first. And so they're here in this bar when they start to fight out, and and really go after each other. They're saved by this tag team because they're like, we want you the best of your ability. And then they're starting to understand that this isn't fake, this isn't scripted, that this is real. There's real punching, real stuff, real stakes at hand for this tournament. And again, some of these splash pages, the big page reveals and the action and the there's a part where you think a puppy's going to be punched, and I'm like, no, please. And it says puppy punch, and then that's when
all the lighting tubes you want, but don't hit a dog, please.
No way. So that's what really gets everybody after each other. And so another pretty big chapter as we move through this, and you get to see the big splash page, almost like a video game of Street Fighter, of everyone's profile and the different teams that are up there. As we look over these teams, fellas, what jumps out at you? Of course, you have Orangabang, and then you have Pizza Party. But what are some other names there that you like that jump out at you for those who they're going to fight against?
Lucha Bots got screwed.
Lucha Bots.
I wanted to see the Lucha Bots. Like, that's such a cool idea.
I know.
Pizza Party is just ridiculous. I don't understand what's happening there. But I was curious. Could somebody tell me what FISO stands for?
Brandon, you want to take this one?
Fugly your sorry opinions. I just watched Mean Girls recently.
Forget your sorry.
I just watched Mean Girls.
But they're fun. I think
Orion.
Yeah,
was pretty fun.
The Knights. That was my favorite one. I'm skipping ahead a bit, but their finisher, what do they call it? Like King Arthur's table or whatever.
Yeah, King Arthur's table.
Yes.
The double team Canadian destroyer to the face. Get out of here.
That feels physically impossible.
Yeah, it feels like you actually die.
Slightly.
But wait, because it's real here.
Loser leaves planet Earth. I don't know.
Loser leaves.
So this particular issue, this chapter is very action packed. There's a lot of wrestling. There's a lot of slamming. There's a lot of energy flying across the page. And Daniel Warren Johnson, just a master of capturing the kinetic energy of what's going on in the ring. His art fits perfect for this kind of comic. And I don't know if this ever become a series on Netflix or a movie or not. I don't know. It's like if they make it like Scott Pilgrim or something like that, I would love it. But this particular book just is absolutely amazing. And then you have Willard, the Necroton, who's like on the corner, on the sidelines, just drooling, and because he loves it so much. And there's little things too. Like if you look in the back, the crowds, all the details. He did not skimp on the details of the people who are in the crowds. Every face has its own expression on it. I don't know how long it takes. I would love to ask him how long it takes for him to finish a page or not. Mm-hmm. But that, just the details of those who are just watching in the crowd. And there's a cameo at the very end that I'll talk about later. What else about this other than the New York slice?
I was going to bring that one up.
Okay. Just one thing, and then I promise I'll shut up for this issue. The way he draws Lona's moonsault is beautiful.
Yeah,
stunning,
absolutely beautiful. But the Orangabang's finishing move, the Attenborough's cradle, again, physically, I don't know if this is possible because it's a top rope suplex into like a reverse cutter. How would you do that? How would you?
I would have said reverse RKO, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's an
diamond
cutter.
Reverse Cody cutter. We want Cody. We want Cody. We want Cody.
The only other thing I will add on this issue is that I do like how we are forced to deal with the drama of knowing why everybody is in this tournament.
Yes, that's what I wanted to highlight.
We have to know that the reason why the Orangabangs or whatever the name is in this is because their sister died or something and they want to bring her back. Every person they go up against, we find out. And really everybody has, maybe not so much the people who are going to show up in the fourth issue, but everyone's got really good motives for being in this tournament. and you kind of feel bad that some of these people lose and are therefore not going to get their loved one back.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm
Go for
with
it,
you
Josh.
100%. That part really stood out to me a lot. I mean, this particular page here where they really give into that drama after they defeat Orangutan, and just the emotion you can see on their faces, and there's like a really moving, that last panel there's a really moving bit where Lona is, the two orangutans are hugging each other in the middle of the ring, kind of crunched over, and Lona is in that huddle having like a group hug with them, and like apologizing and saying like, my mom, I have to get her back, I have to get her back, I have to get her back. So that like emotional moment there, I think again, one, it draws you in as a reader, it tugs on the heartstrings, but also I think it's a good representation of the power of storytelling within professional wrestling.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Just a small
Ryan?
wrestling nerd thing. The King Arthur's table move at the end, my esteemed wrestling fans, it is a pre-existing tag team finisher. Can you tell me the name of the tag team whose finisher it is?
Is that FTR's Shatter Machine?
There you go, Brandon. Hell
I
yeah.
thought so.
Sorry. Heck yes, please.
There you
Oh,
go.
he said a swear.
We've gone from
it's that
PG-13
way?
to PG-14.
What do you think this is? Superpower happy hour? Get out of here.
Superpower happy hour as always.
Oh yeah. So good. We're gonna move into the middle issue, middle chapter there, chapter 4, and again we get more backstory, kind of 1 year before backstory of understands that we're just talking about. We discover why the stakes are high for everyone in this tournament. It's not just like we're not just pulling for Sun and Cobra. We are we are. Or no, Steel and Cobra. Like we're pulling for other people too, and so it's hard for you at this point in the book. Like, well, everybody wants to get somebody back. Who am I rooting for? Of course, I want her to see her mom, but there's other people here too. So, yeah, there's so much here, and it's in this here that we have a big learn here that their Uncle Blood shows up as a part of a team.
Puro Pack.
And the fight. Oh man, the fights that go on here again. Oh my gosh, what was that? That's somebody calling the church at 8 o'clock at night. Sorry. Yeah. So
Jesus never rests. Well,
that's right. That's
Oh,
right. Joshua can't even edit this out.
Neither does Will Rose.
He does. Yep, I'm on Paxlovid right now, folks. I'm gonna reveal that to you.
I'm on Paxlovid right now. This
I support Paxlovid and vaccines. Yeah. So yeah, what stands out here, y'all? Help me out here. Go for it. Chapter 4. We're in the middle of this book. I can't believe we're 4 chapters in. A lot of fighting, a lot of kicking, a lot of knees to the face. Again.
Yeah, she's like the queen of the V trigger.
Yep.
Yeah, dude.
So for me,
Brandon. Sorry.
So for me, this is like my one like little gripe about this book. I really enjoyed this book. There was something about the reveal of Uncle Blood that kind of felt like we need a reason to up the ante. So let's just throw him in there and then just immediately take him off the board. So I'm not trying to imply any kind of like lazy storytelling on the part of Daniel Warren Johnson, because again, the detail in all of this has been very good. Just for me personally, there was something about that reveal that was like, I understand why, because we wanted to get to the main event and turn it up to 11. I don't know what else they could have done to make that bridge, but there was something about this part that just kind of felt like, here's the Vince Russo swerve from out of nowhere. That
Are you saying you didn't like the swerve, bro?
bro.
Well, it's like George Lucas when he was like, I am your father. For Return of the Jedi, he's like,
Sure.
I'm gonna have another big reveal. And I'm gonna reveal that Luke and Leia are brother and sister. That'll get them to. We're like, what? Didn't you guys kiss? Like,
Ew.
ew, what's going on?
Gross.
I'm gonna up the ante and have another big moment like that. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. It's again, there's reflection on masks and what we're hiding from others, and then when do we feel like we can share our true selves with those we trust or not, or shock value or whatever. There's something there about mask and masking and revealing. There's a part of this story, but I think goes into our human story too. So I think that was going there, but I definitely hear that critique, and that's there. And then they go after it. They go, man, the fighting.
Yeah. I think if it was like the Cobra Sun, where we got like a little bit of a reveal earlier on, I think if there was like just one little, and maybe I missed it the first read through, but if there was like a little like subtle panel at some point that implied that Uncle Blood was like aware of what was going on or something, I think I would have liked it more that way.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But with just like the hard reveal, I was like,
Gotcha. And then we come to find out like he's on death's door too. Like there's almost a fatal thing there that kind of steps up. Oh no, another family member
Gets wrecked.
Levels up.
Can I give a shout out though, like real quick? This panel right here, I just want to give a shout out to one of my favorite female superstars, Becky Lynch. This has hardcore Becky Lynch energy. When Becky Lynch had her nose broken and she won the match, blood streaming down her face, and like that still of her. Shout out Becky Lynch.
The man comes around, Josh. The man comes around.
Yeah, and I want to get to the other ones where I want to make sure we're moving along. But the final page, the comics, the reason comics get me to keep reading, because there's always this final page reveal. There's like, I can't wait for the next one. Whether it's the revelation of a villain or a hero or something, or somebody died or in a tight situation. The final page in this chapter is Cobra Sun armed up with a bat with barbed wire, with a chair with barbed wire, with
I want this as a
light. The light, the light bulbs,
the light tubes,
and what is that? What's in front of the light tubes? Is that like a crutch? What is that? I don't even know what
that is. That's a Singapore stick. Cane or a kendo stick.
Kendo sticks. Will,
and he's got a bat like Abyss.
Yeah. So there, he's ready. He's like, he's seen enough. Uncle Blood, others is like, all right, we're gonna go win this thing, and we're gonna do it. So the next chapter is again another flashback of what's going up.
I think Ryan just threw a flag on the field.
Okay.
I was just gonna say,
let's go to the teleprompter. Let's go to the teleprompter.
He walks out of this issue looking like he just graduated from Terry Funk's dojo. Like he is suited and booted and ready to make someone bleed.
Boom. I'm glad you got that in, Ryan. I'm glad you got that in. Thanks, buddy. Nailed it. And so again, you see like the stakes and things going on, and they're hop into the ring to fight some more. What's this final match? Where are they going against?
He's trying to bait us, guys. He's trying to bait us into saying this.
Who are they fighting against, y'all? Who is
it? Am I allowed to say it or no?
The people from the bar jumped them.
I made a note that I wrote really big on the bottom of my paper in front of me that I will show you when this is no longer live.
Okay.
Yeah, to remind myself of things I shouldn't say. Anywho, carry on.
Well, yeah. So here you had the final match, and really the fifth chapter is this is the big reveal that Lona now sees that there's an unmasking that happens, and Cobra Sun's mask is pulled off, and she looks and sees that it's her dad with a small. It's not like dad. It is a small little word bubble with the word dad is very, very small with a small question mark. Dad, almost like a whisper, and how that's captured onto the panel it's unbelievable. You can hear her say it and how she says it, masterful. But yeah, and then at the end of this, not only the big reveal, but then you have forget your so-called opinions as the winners. As the winners of this match. But then we come to find out that they both want something. And so then they have to fight each other, not just a tag team, but they're the ones. So you have Steel and Cobra who kind of take the loss, they take the L, and they're like, all right, we're out there so to watch this other match go on and what happens there.
Go for it.
Okay, well, I guess I'll just talk. I thought Will was going to keep going. Just real quick. So Was I the only one? So Lona does the senton off of the ladder through the guy through the table. And on commentary, the guy was like, I've never seen that before. Bro, have you never watched Jeff Hardy? That's like per match. That's like every match. What are you talking about?
I've never seen that.
Continue.
with the ridiculousness of wrestling, I love one of the first few pages and panels in this issue. We see one of the FYSO members, like their reason to fight, but then we cut to the general manager's office in the back, and oh my gosh, Cobra Sun's back there, and he wants a match with FYSO tonight. And he's like, the stipulation is, I got to read this because it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
A no disqualification, barbed wire, ladder falls, count anywhere death match. That is the most like EC dub, EC dub,
right.
EC dub. Like that. This is
Paul
like
Hyman's wet dream.
Paul who?
Heyman?
I thought you said Paul. Nope,
Paul E.
nope.
Dangerously?
I did not hear Heyman. I heard a different similar word. So
Jeezy, crazy.
sorry,
getting late,
I'll see
folks.
myself
Getting
out.
late.
I'll see myself out. The match is brutal. Like the barbed wire bats. I mean, gosh, there's a chain involved at one point. Like it's just when my favorite part was when Frank does the Boston Crab on Cobra Sun with the thumbtacks.
In the thumbtacks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, okay, like you would never see that on like WWE or AEW or New Japan. Like you would have to go to like a backyard wrestling, like
Game
event
Changer
in
Wrestling.
Kentucky for that. Game Changer Pro, which by the way, Lona wears a Game Changer Wrestling shirt in this issue.
Nice.
So anyway, sorry, that's all.
No, that's good.
wrestling nerd stuff.
I think the whole bit of like leveling up to the next thing, and I do. We're right. We're reading comics, right? This isn't like real, and there's things that happen in the ring that you can make it. But yeah, they keep leveling up, and that's why it's fit for something like this. And someone just listening halfway through this, like, are they talking about real matches that happened? And like, no, we're reading a comic book and talking about this. But the action from panel to panel, page to page again, is amazing. So yeah,
it's
like
freaking Mortal Kombat. Like
yeah.
That match had for me like reminiscent of the Edge Mick Foley match at WrestleMania with the thumbtacks. Like, come on now. The only thing it was missing was a flaming table. I was ready for it.
Yeah.
I was ready for it.
That's true. I didn't think about that. We were a flaming table away from perfection.
We were a flaming table away. Gosh darn it.
That is the name of this episode. Daniel Warren Johnson, Do a Powerbomb, is a flaming table away from perfection.
From perfection.
Please.
The
Somebody
official
email him.
endorsement from
Somebody
SG on
email
the
him. Yes.
Yeah, the back of the
Brandon.
graphic novel
Wow.
has Brandon Knight, a flaming table away from perfection. All right, let's get
The
into chapter
Brandon
6. Here we
Knight
go.
story.
Yeah, there you get more like Uncle Blood and Jacob backstory. Again, remember the dad's name is Jacob. There's a big reveal at the end of this one where literally God shows up. And so yeah, Jacob, God. Second reading of this book, I've realized that the dad's name is Jacob, and here comes God later. I'm like, oh my gosh, of course. So yeah. As we lead to the final reveal on the final page of literal God showing up, who's masked, by the way. We don't see God's face. What is your? This is the penultimate issue. What do you see in here? What is jumping out that you can't believe that this is happening in this story? Ryan.
So what I love about the reveal of God is how God is revealed. Like he's like the ultimate mega boss. And because they love, like Jacob loves his wife so much and misses her so much, Lona feels like her mom was stolen from her. They're like, okay, 2-on-1 match with God, bring it freaking on.
Yep.
Like they are so willing to take their hopelessness into this scenario and be like, if this is what we've got to do to get her back, this is what we've got to do. And I love that, like, Dana Warren Johnson writes, this is like, they were never going to win this. Ever.
Yeah.
Like, they lose their last two matches. Like if you were a wrestler and you're like on your way to the big match, if you lose at the Royal Rumble and you lose at WrestleMania, you are not like considered like a great wrestler at the end. But I love that God is this unbeatable opponent, and they just walk into it like, hey, we got to walk into the belly of the beast. We're going to do it.
Yep. And they go up the escalator and they go to the top and they end up going to Heaven's Gate Pro. And they go, there's like,
of course it's called Heaven's Gate Pro.
It's not a, was that?
I said, of course it's called Heaven's Gate Pro. Like, what else would it be called?
What else could it be called? And there's a crowd, and you go there, and people are chanting, God, 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 from the crowd. Again, look at he didn't skimp on one face in the crowd. And he's like, Sun and Steel, I've watched the entirety of the Death Live tournament. You are most impressive. And now it's time. And again, the flashbacks in the panels going back to family and tender moments between mother and child, dad and child, and masking and unveiling. Jacob literally sees his daughter for the first time with the mask on, right? And then he takes the mask off so that he could look on his child without the mask on. And so what does that say? And I love that this existential questions, as Josh said at the beginning of this, smacks of or alludes to what's going on in Job. Like there's questions. Why are these things happening? And God doesn't give a definitive answer in the book of Job. And the fact that Job, even like his friends are quoting Proverbs, and he's like, nope, that's not hitting right with me right now at all. So the fact that the people who put the canon together put Proverbs and Job right next to each other so they can have a wrestling match of themselves of how life works, I think is pretty poignant and something that I've been leaning to over the last few years as well. So yeah, go back and read Genesis chapter 32 and see what's going on there. The mystery of a veiled divine being. Is it an angel? Is it God? We don't know. Yeah, but it walks away with a limp and a new person. So yeah, all that in there is absolutely. I did not even see God coming. Like I was like, what? Even when I turned to that, like I was just
most
like,
don't. Will they just catch God's back or whatever as they hide in a rock as God passes by?
That's right.
We've read the freaking book.
We've read the freaking book.
Brandon, what are your thoughts? Did you see this coming? Did you know that God was coming around the corner?
So unfortunately I did, because I am a regular listener to the podcast iFanboy, and they loved this series. Yeah. So I knew the reveal that was coming the whole time. Still liked it. Pretty sure the referee is Jesus. Just look at the referee on the big splash page. Like, that's Jesus, right? I like that God is wearing a mask, as opposed to like what we've been seeing with Cobra Sun of like, he's like hiding and is having like this identity thing. I think God wearing a mask kind of goes back to what we were just saying a moment ago of the hiding his glory. Like, it's not a wrestling mask. It's like, that looks like steel or something. Also, weird detail that I enjoyed. God is referred to in a plural pronoun. They.
Yes.
Yeah.
They. Which I liked that.
Yep.
I like this Brandon guy.
I know.
Thank you.
So looking at Jesus ref Jesus on
Jesus.
his like it says HJPW. I'm trying to figure out if there's a hint there, but I guess not.
Heaven's Gate Pro Wrestling.
It's Heaven's Gate Pro Wrestling. Yeah.
Oh, dang it.
Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate.
Yeah. I like that too. I try not to use male or female pronouns for God when I preach. Like I always say God's self or things like that, not to allude to that. The thing you may notice in my preaching that I'll do that. And I like it. They say they. I mean, they use that in Genesis too, at the beginning of Genesis. So Daniel's onto something there about although the muscles are ripping, you can't really tell. The gender is the face is veiled. The body could be somewhat male, but maybe not, because there's a ton of people who are super ripped, male or female. But yeah.
We also keep coming back to
hashtag Rhea Ripley.
That's true.
Oh,
Jordan Grace too. We keep coming back to the Genesis 32. I did a deep dive on that passage for a sermon I preached a couple times last year, and it is really interesting when you get past like the Christian teachings on it and get more into like rabbinical literature on the passage, because it actually adds to the like mystery and the confusion, but also keeps settling back on this, like the main focus of this story of, not who is this person that Jacob's wrestling with, but like this is the climax of Jacob's story of just constantly battling everything around him to get what he wants, and now he is desperate to try. I mean, this is clearly, I don't know if Daniel Warren Johnson, I guess I can't speculate on his like religious views at all, but like it would not surprise me if he spent some time here in the construction of this story, because it it just really comes out here.
And I go back to that all the time. Like I think when, again, my setting for ministry is on a college campus. And so I have students coming all the time trying to ask questions and wrestling with whether they have the right belief or not, or whether they should or not believe, or what questions they have or shouldn't ask. And I ask all the time, like, yeah, your professors are asking for assignments to be turned in and to write essays. But when you go to meet God or face God face to face, God's not going to ask for a term paper. God's not going to ask you to give you a test and say, check off this multiple choice test. You're going to get a hug. You're not going to get a test. You're going to get a hug. And so I think that's important. That the wrestling part is a big part of us, whether we're wrestling with family, our life, ourselves, our own mask that we wear, or God, God's self. Then that's pretty important. And I think Daniel did some homework here when it comes to wrestling and how to interpret Genesis chapter 32. And then Eric says here, does the internet realize the perfectness of the panelists on the stream, comics plus God plus wrestling? Yeah, I don't think they can handle it. I don't think
the internet's not ready. They're not ready.
It's not ready. They're not ready.
But can I make one more comment on this before we skip,
Absolutely.
End this issue? Because this is really where the I loved this whole thing before, and I was like vibing with like the violence and the wrestling stuff. But this is where the philosophical and theological mind of Josh was peaked. Interest, you got it. So the necromancer character, up to this point, they're like, oh cool, we're gonna get mom back, right? And then it turns out that homeboy was lying. Like he doesn't actually have the power to do the thing.
Yeah.
And so, one could riff here theologically on the lies of death are just that, they're empty lies, right? Or we could maybe seek, an allusion to like the temptations of Jesus in the desert, right? Where the Satan is giving, Jesus these temptations. Or for me, if I'm going to go philosophical, there's this concept, this idea of the myth of the sacred object, which I think drives a whole lot of stuff. I think it drives specific forms of Christianity. I think it drives something like capitalism in this country. And it's the idea that there is this object that exists, that if only we got that, then we would be whole, then we would be satisfied, then our life would be complete. And the problem is, whenever we get to said object, it evaporates and there's something new. It becomes an artifact once we grasp it. And so the myth of the sacred object is just that. It's a myth. It's an illusion. It keeps us going and moving. And so to me, the necromancer was holding this sacred object in front of, Cobra-san and Lona, something that they thought if they could get back, then things would be good. And as soon as they grasp it, it evaporates, and they realize that wasn't the thing. And so for me, I was like, okay, I'm vibing with this.
I was going to throw an air horn out there, but I didn't want to distract from what the poetic theopoetics you just threw out there for
forgive. Yeah, sorry.
So good. So good. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's in scripture as well. But this whole wrestling match with God, the final issue, and what they're asking for and seeking for, I didn't know. Was she going to get her mom back? Were they going to live happily ever after at the end? I don't want to skip over the last two issues as much. Like Ryan, there are panels, there's something going on there as we head to the end, and the final conversation between God and Lona, I think, is pretty powerful.
Yeah. I don't have any theopoetics in my back pocket here, so I'm just going to give you what I know. And what I know is that God's moveset is peak. He hits a Tiger Driver 98, and then, this might be a little theopoetic, but he hits a crucifix suplex, which was hilarious to read. Hilarious. Yeah. And just again, I love that. I love how God is depicted here. Brandon hit on so many good parts of how God is shown and not shown. And Josh says things so eloquently. I have to listen to Rethinking Faith on half speed. I don't get the, I listen to him and Trip Fuller on the same speed. And it's like the ghost of Trip is here with us. So I love how this ends. Are we jumping to the very end, Will? Because my favorite part was at the end.
Yeah. I think what is the finishing there? The pillars of Golgotha.
So Brandon, I see what you did there. The hot finish was that we see a memory completely restored to Lona about death and what happens after death and what really is the function of death in our story. And Yuya appears and tells her basically it's just like, the matches are predetermined. So is our death. Like, we're all going to die. And I love at the end where Cobra-san and Lona are hugging in the middle of the ring, and they don't really want the God belts. They just want Yuya back. And you pan over, and Yuya's in the audience, and she says, "That's my girl."
Oh, come on!
I cry every time I read that.
Yep,
me too.
It's so. Oh, keep it systematic. It is so freaking good. Like, I'm sorry that we had to spoil it to break it down. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's a powerful way to end this book.
And I think I lean into, again, like at the end of Job, there's consider the heavens. There's the look beyond yourself at the different animals and were you there when I created this or that? But there's no like definitive answer of like why this happened to Job. And it's an open-ended question. And even with Jacob wrestling with God, it ended open. There wasn't like a true winner. There were still things that went on there that's kind of open-ended. There's more wrestling to come. It's not over. They didn't live happily ever after. You never find, and they lived happily ever after in the scriptures. And so I think that is pretty
sounds
absolutely
like a depressing book.
I know. But when it comes to the whole panel where they made God bleed, I think is pretty important. There's a point where they're wrestling and God's winning, but there's a point where it says, and they made God bleed. And so I can't help on the doorstep of the season of Lent and getting into Holy Week. There is something about this making God bleed that humanizes the whole story, and where God shows solidarity with the human condition in that. So I think that's pretty important. And I will say at the very end, this again, spoiler folks, the final page there at the very bottom, the guy with the blonde hair with kind of parted in the middle there at the bottom, that is the character from Murder Falcon. So there he is, Murder Falcon character there in heaven watching the match. So maybe heaven is you just guys watching a bunch of wrestling matches. I guess what I'm thinking.
Let's go.
That
sounds
panel's
a lot
the
like heaven to me.
crucifixion. Yeah, that panel is the crucifixion, Will. That when I saw that, and then there was a bit where they commented on it, was like, oh, they made God bleed. And he's like, yeah, that hasn't happened in a while. It's the freaking crucifixion. Like, and it's the incarnation and crucifixion in a freaking wrestling comic book. It's wild.
Isn't that wild? Isn't that it?
But I figured something out. I'm very excited. Can I say it real quick? And then I'll promise I won't mention this again.
Okay.
I've been trying to figure out this entire conversation and earlier today how the author of this comic book is secretly an open theist or a process relational thinker. And I have figured it out. I have it. So there's a bit where at the end, obviously they lose when they wrestle with God, which the fact that they can wrestle with God is already an open and relational concept, because the divine has the ability to affect somebody and also be affected. That's not, classical theism. That's impassibility and insufferability, whatever.
Preach,
Anyway,
J. Patty.
Woo, here we go.
But what's crazy to me is, so at the end, God wins, obviously, because even if the God in process, who some people call weak, they're wrong. God is still the most powerful, and God wins. And there's this bit where Lona's like, "I just want my mom back," and God's like, I wish I could give that, I wish I could give you what you ask for, but I can't. And at first, and then God goes on, he, in this case, to restore Lona's memory unilaterally, which would break my process theory. But here's where I think it makes sense. In process thinking, there's this thing called objective immortality and subjective immortality. Objective immortality is the idea that all of creation, you and I, etc., live on within the divine memory forever, right? So because as within process thought, God is in time with us and is constantly learning in each moment of becoming. And so this conversation now exists within the divine memory objectively forever, right? And will continue to impact the divine. So does Lona's mom. There's a concept within process thinking called prehension. It is a subconscious feeling, is the word that gets used a lot by Whitehead. So in each moment of becoming, we are prehending the past. The past meets us in each moment of becoming. We feel it, and then we make our decisions based off of that, and it keeps happening. So seeing Lona's mom in heaven is like seeing Lona's mom existing objectively within the divine mind forever. Okay? And in each moment of Lona's becoming, Lola's mom exists objectively for Lona to prehend, to feel in each moment of her becoming, if she has eyes to see. And that's why Daniel Warren Johnson is a process relational thinker. Amen. God is amazing.
This is awesome.
We read this. All came from a comic book.
There we go.
It came from a comic book. I thought we were just reading the funny books. Go read God Can't.
You still got it.
You still got it.
You still got it.
Love of God. There you go. Brandon has a counterpoint or a point or something he wants to do off the top turnbuckle.
Not a off top turnbuckle.
Yeah.
I've been learning some wrestling moves with my new job. I was going to say, I am admittedly the more conservative theologian of the four of us. I will admit that. And I'm not here to debate anything you said. I just wanted to say thanks for explaining all of that, because I don't really know process theology very much. I don't really hang with your shows very often. I've been meaning to get more into them, honestly. So yeah, I just appreciate the explanation. Again, more conservative in my views, but also more existential. So there were some times where I was like, okay, yeah, I can see that. I get that. So that's all.
Yeah, I like that. There, yeah, hop over to Rethinking Faith. A lot of process. I don't know if Daniel Warren Johnson will claim that label, but maybe he'll listen to this. Maybe we can reach out in a message. I know he's a busy man. He's got a lot of work.
He's going to be at Theology Beer Camp this year.
He could be. There we go, bro. Daniel Warren Johnson. Y'all need to
bring that up here by Chicago so I can get to it.
I know. So good, y'all. Yeah. All this to say, yeah, we like comics, we like wrestling, and here, this book is why we are brought here together to talk theology, to talk comics, to talk wrestling. It all comes together in this pretty pivotal story in the Bible in Genesis chapter 32, and then this book illustrates those questions that it lifts up. So I applaud that as well, Josh. Very well said, and I think you're right. I don't Yeah, Daniel Warren Johnson. We need to hear from you. Did you study Tom Ward, or the original Hebrew of Genesis 32? I don't know.
Have you read Process and Reality?
Process and Reality by Whitehead. I don't know.
Probably
Closing thoughts, y'all. I know this is going to be Joshua's like longest. He can't even edit this because it's live streamed. I don't know how much he can edit.
Oh, other Joshua. Cool.
The other God. Joshua. Yeah. But yeah, this might be our record. And I know Cooper probably has to go to bed here soon. And Brandon's like, man.
Oh, he's long in bed.
Yeah.
Mom took care of that.
But we do have 5 eyeballs on us here late at night. I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah. Thank you, 5.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, Eric, you did get a master's in theology. Who's going to pay these student loans?
As soon as you find out, let me know, because I need that as well.
You're gonna have to take up a job as wrestling, being like the what's the name of the wrestler who always loses and gets paid though? Kind of like
Jobber.
The jobber.
The jobber. Become a jobber.
No, Eric, the one that's asking this question, Eric, you could be a wrestler. You could do it.
I love it. All right. Overall, of course, we love this book. Go read it. That's what we're going to recommend. I'm going to make this episode just a slight longer because, y'all, we're gonna reveal our finishing move. If we had one finishing move in our wrestling, what would we pick? And it can't be like a over explain kind of thing. I'll start. Mine's going to be, it's called the Chili Willy. And that's going to be like the Barry Windham claw on somebody's face. And then I'm going to lift them up in the air and slam them on their back. And it's called the Chili Willy. They're going to be out cold. So there you go. That's my finishing move.
I thought that was all right.
I thought that was going to get a lot more, more attitude.
Systematic ecology. No, we're not. Yeah,
that's
no
right.
more. We don't
Balls
know
Mahoney. I'll just say that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. We're there.
There's
right,
viscera. I was feeling some real
now.
viscera energy from Wills.
There you go. The claw.
I want my finisher to be the power bomb, but due to my size, I'm a shorter fella. So I would say Shawn Michaels' sweet chin music, not the super kick, sweet chin music.
Nice.
None of this Young Bucks garbage where you have to hit 15 of them to put someone down.
Tuning up the band, taking care of.
I was going to say, are you doing the whole thing? You got the tuning up the band? All right, nailed it.
All right, Josh, how you win in your match?
So I too am a small individual. I am 5'5" and weigh all of 130 pounds.
Okay, Spike Dudley.
So you are the finisher. We'll just throw you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when I used to do, so we did like trampoline wrestling in middle school at Campus Life, which is like Youth for Christ stuff.
Nice.
And my best friend Alex is a much larger individual, and one of our moves that we would do when we actually fought each other, much like in Do a Powerbomb, is he would Irish whip me into people and I would drop kick them. And it was wonderful. And anywho, I need something that I can pull out of anywhere that's quick and doable for a person of any size. And I know it sounds like a cop-out, but I'm hitting an RKO all freaking day. And if it's not an RKO, then it's a spear. But I feel like if I spear someone who's bigger than me, I'm just going to bounce off of them like a teddy bear. Sure. So I need an RKO.
Boom.
Sorry. Yeah.
Ryan.
So I have another physical thing that keeps me from actually saying the move I want to choose. I would love to be able to hit a fireman's carry into a cutter. That would be amazing. I don't know if that's even a move. It's almost like a reverse burning hammer, but the burning hammer is cool too. Brandon referenced this earlier. I think a V-trigger looks so good. Oh. And for those of you who aren't wrestling fans that are like, V-trigger, is this, is systematic ecology going in a content direction that I can't approve of anymore? The V-trigger is a running knee strike on a prone opponent that's on their knees or they're getting up, from the ground, and you just smash your knees straight into their temple. The V-trigger looks so good, mastered by the amazing Kenny Omega.
So do you think it's better than a Shining Wizard? Which is
Wait, hold
very
on.
much very, very similar move, yes? Because I don't think in
No.
a Shining Wizard it's a kick. It's a kick, not a knee, right?
I think
I
I
could be wrong.
misrepresented the V trigger.
We're taking away your wrestling credentials. You're out of here. You're out. You're
darn
out.
it.
We're cut. Cut from the four.
Oh,
horsemen.
well,
I'll just say
so-
running knee.
Running knee.
There you go.
I love it. Well, I think from this particular episode, I'm gonna walk away with a limp, y'all. I will see what happens, how I get to my car or not. Ryan loves.
We
That's what you
effectively
get
did an
for
Iron Man
stepping in
match
the
tonight,
ring.
guys.
We
Fatal
did.
We did.
4-way Iron Man match.
Yeah, we
Ah,
did.
I love it. Well, it's an hour and 40 minutes. It's gonna be on YouTube.
Praise God.
We'll have tens of people that will watch this, I hope, at some point. And this will be an episode we share with our friends. Go read Do a Powerbomb by Daniel Warren Johnson. Read his other works. If you want recommendations of what to read out in the comic book world, you're like, wow, that sounds pretty deep. It's not just a book for kids or funny books or whatever. Brandon and I, and Ryan, others, we have suggestions that we can give you. Smash the like button, share with your friends. And Chili Willy says, share the faith, share the geek.